So these all stem from best practices. Email personalization, targeting, and automation all kind of work hand in hand together as part of an overall email strategy. And I'll talk a little bit about each of these different tactics or ideas about email in separate slides here. So first, talking about email personalization. It is more than a strategy. This is the primary way to connect one-on-one with each person that has reached out to any of our ministries. And so for those in the secular world, is their primary way to reach one-on-one with anybody that's interested in their products and services. And for us, it's from the ministry standpoint. And that may be with fundraising, or it may be with products, it may be with trying to get people on mission trips, but it becomes a good channel for one-on-one communications. Personalization, when you can make the email more targeted toward that person, is highly effective. And segmentation alone, just going after the right audience at the right time, can increase revenue by up to 760%. And that would be, for us, more on the donor fundraising side. Personalized subject lines are 26% more likely to be opened, and then revenue can be up to 5.7 times higher with personalization. One other great thing with this is it lowers unsubscribe and spam complaint rates. When you've personalized your email, it gets almost to nil on your unsubscribe and spam complaint rates compared to when you're just doing a broadcast email. And one idea on email personalization is send from a person and not just a brand. And that's a tactic that Donor uses quite a bit for Family Life. Next slide, please. So you may have the question of, when you think of email personalization, what is the kind of information that we're talking about personalizing for somebody in the email? The main things that people probably think about is who they are, and that'll be like their first name or your nickname. You may send out first and last name, like an internal email out to people, celebrate people's birthdays, wedding anniversaries. If you're going to send out to pastors, you may break it into church or regions or things like that, is who they are working for or what region they may be in for there. Who they care about. This may be for people interested in certain speakers that we have on certain topics. If there's any information on friends and family, work colleagues, again, that would be like pastors. You might send a group to pastors. What they did, you start getting into a little bit of Big Brother type of stuff here. So you kind of got to watch how deep. You don't want to get creepy data with people. So, and right now, as far as I know, we've got so many different systems. We're not catching all the information into Adobe Campaign, but each of the systems may have an email component that handles some aspects of this for e-commerce. So what they're browsing, if they looked at a product page, we can handle purchases. So if somebody purchased something, then we could send them a follow-up series of emails that says, hey, thanks for purchasing X, Y, and Z. And did you know about either this product, or did you know about this group of people, or did you know about, maybe becoming a brand ambassador for us, or a group coordinator, or something along those lines, to deepen their engagement and involvement with Crew and Family Life and all of our ministries. What they did not do, if they didn't complete a profile, if they didn't finish a survey, if there were certain options that weren't selected, I haven't seen anything really on what they did not do, but those are some things I just want to get out there so you can be thinking about what are options that we have with things. Then another thing is what others did in reaction. This will probably come into play when you're doing multi-channel marketing and you've got everything integrated. But what kind of social media influence have you noticed with this person? What kind of impact have they had on reviews, other actions taken, and things like that? We send out, so we have group coordinators for Family Life, and we send this out to these people that kind of have like a reward point balance towards the more people that they can get set up to come to a Family Life Weekend to Remember conference. They get points for that. And the more they get subscribed or signed up under their name, they get more points towards being able to give out free memberships to other people. So at the bottom of our emails, we tell them where they are, how many they've done, how many towards the free one, basically where they are in terms of reward points. And then geographics of where they are, city, state. If you can pull information together, you can talk about the local weather when you're sending an email to somebody and bring that in and make that be dynamic. Next slide, please. So once you've kind of got data that you have for personalization, the other aspect of that is email targeting. So you'll hear people say email segmentation. That's basically the same as targeting. You're creating a segment, a targeted segment to send to. So those are one and the same. And mainly what this is email campaigns for unique segments of your list. So for the crew newsletter, that's the big broadcast list. But if they wanted to, if they had the data for who are all the men in the list, maybe they'd want to send an email to all the men. If they had a note on who were all the female on that list, they may want to send an email to all the females in that list. From a fundraising perspective, you can break it out to donors, non-donors, lapsed donors, active donors, new donors, monthly donors, major donors. You can break it out into all kinds of different segments and then have a completely different message or a slightly different message for each group to help them feel like you're talking straight to them, especially along their lines of what they've been doing in terms of giving to the ministry. A/B testing. The best way to do that is A/B testing one variable at a time. So it's like test one subject line versus another subject line, or test the body content versus body content of another. Test where there may be two different images that you're using. Even test the email sender or some things that we've seen. You want to make sure you've got a clear call to action and make it very clear what the next steps are. And that could be prominent buttons that will stand out. And these days you want to think about what's my call to action on a mobile screen. So on your phone, that's where most people are seeing things. So you want that button to show up well on the phone. And that's where people are going to take a lot of the action. It's recommended to mix up broadcast messages with segmented sends, and that will kind of help boost your engagement and keep people from kind of getting tired of your regular emails that go out. Next slide, please. Then on to email automation. So marketing automation is the #1 tactic for business-to-business brands for lead nurturing and lead generation. And this works really well for ministry as well. So from a standpoint of trying to move somebody along to nurture them towards signing up for a mission trip, you might have a series of emails go out to them. And that's just one example of something like that. But automation a lot of times is creating a series. You've got the long term in mind. You're creating kind of a leads channel to direct them along the lines towards a behavior that you ultimately want. Some of the things that you can trigger: personalized emails, birthdays, anniversaries. We have behavior triggers like when you do event registration, for example, the weekend to remember. We have what we call the sweater series. So this is everything that you need to know before the event. And we send out customized emails for that. Triggered lists, triggered emails are a small subset, only about 5% of the overall emails that you send, but it can be a transactional email for when somebody signed up. A lot of times it's a personal experience. Usually it's part of a long-term strategy, and triggered emails can very often provide high returns on investment. Another example of automation is dynamic content matching to local events, such as address, region, products based on preparations. Next slide, please. And there we are ready for Nick to take over with SMS.
Great. Thank you, Shane. Yeah, as Shane mentioned, I'll be talking a little bit about SMS marketing here, engaging your audience through text messages. So on the next slide, just kind of a brief refresher of the benefits of multi-channel marketing. And so you think about multi-channel, you're really utilizing these different avenues: email, SMS, web, social media, things like that, to interact with your audience in different ways and in different contexts. And so some benefits for that is that it really provides the opportunity to engage your customers through their preferred channels. So whichever ones they're interacting with most, which ones they most enjoy using, which really just leads to some benefits like increasing our customer reach, leads to higher engagement rates because those are the things that they're using the most often. And also allows us to really reinforce our brand message by using consistent content and our voice across different channels. And so they're interacting with our brand in these different ways, just reinforcing who we are and what we value. And so in terms of using SMS specifically, there's some really great opportunities with using SMS, but also some higher risks associated. And so the first thing there mentions the pervasiveness of mobile phone use and accessibility. And so we all know this, that there's just increasing use of smartphones and text messages. I think I have a stat here. A recent study says the average American checks their phone every 10 to 12 minutes, or about upwards of over 100 times a day that they are checking their phone. And so SMS marketing really puts you right on that home screen every time they check their phone. So increased opportunity with that is also that more and more people are becoming responsive and receptive to SMS marketing. And so in a recent study as well, where they were finding out from people what are their preferred channels to engage in marketing. And email was the first one, but SMS was the second most popular channel that audiences prefer to engage with brands. So with some of those great opportunities comes some great risks. And so it mentions here, when not done well, this has a higher chance of bothering customers, because just as much as that there's a benefit of putting yourself in a messaging app right next to friends, family, those kind of communications, there's also a great risk that if you're not doing it well, if you're not doing it and really offering valuable content, then you can really bother customers. And so some recent surveys as well, about 96% of those surveyed have felt annoyed at least occasionally by an SMS marketing message. And so that is a really high number and a really high risk that we would want to avoid. As well as about 50% of respondents have actually stopped purchasing from a brand because of an annoying SMS marketing campaign. And so there's there's that high opportunity, but also high risk that we really want to avoid, causing adverse effects with our audience. And then also a greater risk with SMS as well is that there's really high legal regulations and requirements with SMS marketing as opposed to email. So there's just a lot of hoops that we have to jump through, a lot of things we need to be cautious about before moving forward with SMS campaigns. So the next slide here will highlight a little bit of some projects we've been using SMS marketing for. And so my team specifically works with the campus ministry. And so these are campaigns that we've launched in the last year and a half with the campus ministry. And for us, especially working with 18 to 23-year-olds, some of those opportunities are even increased all the more because of students and their phone use as well. And so some of the projects that we've been using SMS for are the Crew Opportunities newsletter. And so this is a monthly newsletter that we send out that connects students with opportunities to engage in the mission. And so we've started, previously was an email exclusive campaign, but we've started launching that in the SMS space as well and providing that information through that channel. Another one is with the winter conference team. And so students who had registered for the conference were able to opt in to receive pertinent conference communications leading up to the event via SMS as well. We've also used SMS with fall retreat discount promotions on local campuses. And so this is part of our Find More Freshmen campaign that we've launched with local campus movements, where we're able to offer discounts for students who are interested in attending their fall retreat events on campus. And students receive SMS alerts of the ways to sign up, as well as reminders when those deadlines, the discount deadlines are coming closer. And so they receive that via text. And they also will receive a text at the end of the fall retreat that basically asks them, hey, how did God work in your life over the course of the retreat? And then we're able to receive a lot of feedback of students' experiences at the retreat, and we can give that back to the local staff teams just for vision, as well as we can provide that to people who give generously to provide the funding for the promotion as well. And we've also used SMS campaign to alert students when applications for summer missions or internships with Crew, when those applications go live, they can receive SMS alerts for that as well. And the next slide outlines a little bit of some of the results that we've seen. And so there's just a couple observations here in terms of how students opt in, as well as engagement with the content. And so with the winter conference communications, we had basically added an option into the registration where students could choose to also receive the alerts via SMS. And we saw about 91% of registrants chose to also receive those alerts via SMS. And then as we were actually sending out the communications, we saw a 33% higher click-through rate on the SMS communications in contrast to the email communications. And then with our Career Opportunities newsletter, you'll see on the right kind of a breakdown of how students choose to opt in. And so about 50% are choosing to opt in just via email. And then the other 50% are choosing either SMS only, which is about a third, or choosing both email and SMS. And so 16% of subscribers there. And then with the Career Opportunities newsletter, we're seeing almost a 50% increase in our click-through rate on the SMS delivered content. And so overall for us with our target audience of college students, we're just seeing a higher engagement rate with the SMS content, as well as more and more people who are choosing to include SMS as part of the ways that they are interacting with our content. And then the last slide here just kind of covers some best practices with SMS. And so not going to be able to go too in depth with some of this. But the first thing there is obtaining clear consent in opt-in. And so I mentioned there's just some pretty high regulation. The TCPA, Telecommunications Consumer Protection Act, I believe, has some pretty strict standards of what needs to be provided upfront to someone who might be opting into SMS marketing. And so some of those things include the frequency of the messages, like how many messages per month they can expect to receive in the campaign. There needs to be a notice of, many of you have probably seen this before, but the message and data rates may apply line needs to be in there. A link to terms and conditions and privacy policy, as well as clear instructions for the ways to opt out of the SMS marketing communications. And so all that stuff needs to be delivered upfront and during the opt-in process to the communications. And then kind of a follow-up to that is we also need to send a welcome message to all subscribers that basically reiterates all of that consent information from the original opt-in. You send the welcome message that welcomes them to the campaign, but also provides that information again so that they have it in their phone, it's accessible, and they can more easily find that if they want to opt out or to change their subscription. Some other best practices, including organization name and unsubscribe option on all messages. The organization name is really key there because most people aren't, putting the contact number in their phone as Crew Winter Conference. Like they're not going to do that. And so we need to kind of reiterate, hey, this is Crew Winter Conference texting you with this update. And so it's good practice to have that in every message. Scheduling our messages for appropriate times. And this is actually something that is also regulated by the TCPA, that calls and messages can only come in between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. local time. And so that's something to really be aware of who is in your audience, where they're located, and when you're sending those messages. Some other best practices, and Shane really hit on this, but looking for opportunities to personalize and segment your list. That applies just as much to an SMS subscription list. Keeping your message short and concise. That's one of the biggest appeals of SMS marketing. And it's why people tend to read SMS messages more often, is because they're short. They don't have to dive into a full email. And so even though we can kind of stretch the limit of how big a message can be, even though, messages are limited to 160 characters, but actually most phones automatically just extend a message if it's longer. So even though we have the ability to do that, it's best practice to keep it shorter, keep it concise, and easier to digest and to read for your audience. And then also just providing simple and clear calls to action with each communication. And so you'll notice in the couple previous slides, I had kind of some screenshots of some of those messages. But the reality is, like, sending a link with a call to action ends up taking up a lot of characters and a lot of space. And so trying to find really short links that you can use. But a catch is we can't use kind of the common link shorteners. And so bit.ly, tinyURL, some of those ones, they actually get blocked by phone service providers if you include one of those kind of commonly used link shorteners. And so we actually have a bit.ly premium account that we can have one of these custom short links here, the crew.inc. But even if you're not using a specific program that shortens the link, just trying to find shorter links that you can use, having a vanity URL, things like that can shorten the link, make it nicer to look at, less overwhelming, and just shortens the message even more. And so I think that wraps up SMS. And so you can feel free, if you have any questions, you can save that for the end time here. And I'll throw it over to Candace.
Awesome. So yes, all of those information from Nick, from Shane, is all included in how to build a successful marketing campaign. One thing that really just jumped out at the top of my mind is just speaking through both mention combining marketing channels. The main thing, if there was an overall message of like, how do I make an email campaign successful if I'm doing an elevator pitch, it is to connect with your end users. So of course, if you have an end user who's a super end user and they're following us on social media, if they're receiving our emails, if they're going on our website, the more that we look like we are in relation to each other, the more that they connect with us, the more we know information about them, kind of like the way Shane touched on personalization, the more they connect with us. So we have been using email, and by we, I mean the world, for a very long time. And some points it's gotten to the point where, like Nick mentioned, it's the number one form of channel of communication that people are suggesting, which is our advantage, which gives us the opportunity to communicate with people, for them to know our ministry, know what we're offering, but to really streamline and just bank in on that communication is being able to know somebody and connect with them. And that lets our messages that we're sending out through our ministry just that much more successful. So a few best practices I kind of gave bullet line categories to kind of discuss. And this is my jam. I love talking about strategy. I love talking about email. So I can talk all day. So I'll try to keep it short and concise, just so you guys can kind of grab some nuggets from just some ways to be successful. But creating a welcome series to highlight your ministry and the resources you offer, which is several ways you can do that. People are coming into your ministry from several different channels. They may have attended an event. Somebody may have forwarded them an email. They could have came across us through social media, and once they sign up and they come to be a part of our email list, that is our opportunity to streamline. We may all have this mission like, oh my gosh, we want you to sign up, we want you to do this, we want you to do that. Whatever way that we communicate with them for the very first time is our opportunity for them to know who we are as a ministry, regardless if that's crew, if that's campus, if that's athletes in action, family life. We want to be able to use that time to just streamline and say, oh my gosh, of course, personalization. Hey, Candace, welcome. We have so many things to offer, and we just, even in that welcome series, like some people may have 2 emails, some people may create it to be 3. Some have done 6 over like a long span of time. And even while they're walking through that welcome series, some people have secluded them from receiving different marketing emails during that time. And so their main focus for that end users, yes, we got them here. Yes, they completed our main call to action, but our next and our main objective is for them to know exactly who we are and what resources we have to offer. So through those times, they may mention or introduce them to the president of our ministry. They may introduce them to crew overall. They may use that time to say, hey, you know some things about us now. We want to know some more about you. And they can send out a survey where we can then receive their email address, which we already know, but this allows us to be able to plug that information back into their profile, or be able to use that email or to use that data to streamline some more information to do what Shane talked about in targeting emails. These people said that they want to know more about how parents can get involved in knowing more about what their students are experiencing on campus. And then we know this is what they're wanting to know specific information about, and we can create some evergreen content and share it with them, all in that welcome series. You can have endless opportunities in there. But also planning ahead and making a schedule. I know that I have came in and kind of done some constellation on some projects, and I'm like, man, if you would have called me like 6 months ago, we could have done all these things, which I know with our bandwidth can sometimes be a hiccup. But the more you can sit down and kind of understand a schedule or a plan for your campaign, because usually email is a channel, social is a channel, ads is a channel, but it is all streamlined to your main project. And so once you figure out what is my main goal for this project, how do I want to get them there? How can I maximize, communication with them, and not just my main goal for them right now, but also my main goal for them after this event or after they attend this, helps you be able to create an email strategy to be able to communicate with them. Another thing that I think has been deemed very successful, especially on the family life side, is creating a newsletter. Your newsletter for your ministry, we all know what our ministry recipients are interested in, because regardless of the huge number of crew ministries that I feel like I learn about all the time, it's very niche in certain areas. And so you know exactly what they're coming for. If they're athletes in action, 9 times out of 10, they're an athlete that is interested in wanting to be a Christian first and an athlete second, like whatever you have, and in that instance, you have their interest already. Send them something, I don't know, maybe once a month or once every other month, where it's some content that you have to offer to them outside of whatever campaign that you have given them. Because yes, our goal is, we always have a goal in that project, but our main goal is to expand the kingdom and to continue to be able to walk with our constituents on their faith journey. And the best way we can do that is always be giving them content that we know that they are interested in. Not what we want them to be interested in, which is usually our end goal, but what we know that they have shown interest in. And you can usually do that through a newsletter. Newsletter also usually creates constantly seeing our brand with them, constantly hearing from us. So when we have projects, we have been given the opportunity to know more about them, know what they're clicking on, because usually in a newsletter you have several things. You can have several options for them to click on and to be fed into, to get more information on, which could then be used in another campaign along the lines. So then I kind of talked about, does the end user know your crew sub ministry? And those are just some things to think about. We talked about understanding how you want to segment your list, which is something Shane touched on, which can also come down to, hey, we sent this email 2 months ago and this end user clicked into this list or clicked into this email. You can segment on past history. You can segment on past email behavior, past SMS behavior. So you have different avenues to start segmenting, like right now. It's not something that necessarily you're like, oh gosh, I didn't have a plan already. Am I going to be able to go and segment anyway? Yeah, you can backtrack and segment some information based upon some past emails that you have sent. We talked about consistent branding. I know this is very hard to do with the multiple crew sub ministries, but eventually in Dreamland, I would love for us to get to the point where all of our sub ministries know about the others. And just know crew as a whole. And things that help us do that is by looking similar, like consistent branding, and not necessarily we all look different. Like everybody's maybe using a different playbook as far as your branding looks, what type of pictures you're using, what color your image is. We all may have those different things, but we do also have the crew main goal in mind and the way that we're communicating with them on different levels. So there are different opportunities for us to be consistent in that area as well as across those channels. A strategy that I put in here is one thing to try your best to do is avoid sending ministry emails on Monday. And the reason being is if you think about your inbox, you come in from your inbox and you have all of the sales that happened this weekend. You have everything that has went on this weekend from when you last opened your email, if we're sending to somebody at work, And we don't want to compete with that. We don't want to compete with the sales ads, because sometimes if a sale ad is really good, it's going to distract me and I'm going to go to Target and I'm going to make that purchase. I'm going to forget that I was in email. So you kind of want to send send emails through Tuesday, Friday. If it's consistent with your constituents. I know there's some who have sent emails on the weekend, depending upon what type of events are coming up or what type of events they're having. So that could happen sometimes, but if at all possible, I would avoid sending emails on Monday. Another thing is keep your main message and your call to action above the fold. Shane mentioned that majority of everybody is reading emails from your cell phones. And so what I like content creators to think of when they're writing the content of emails is you want to keep the flick of the wrist as minimal as possible. Because if your email is long and I'm reading it on my cell phone, how many times am I going to continue to keep flicking the wrist, to keep doing those type of things? And so that's one thing to keep in mind, is to try to keep that minimal. Subject lines.
Hey, Candace.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Do you want to just grab a few of these, because we still have pen, and then we want to make sure we have time for questions.
Perfect. Yes. I'll definitely do that. Subject lines is the main thing. When you think about, I know we talked about testing things, subject lines and that teaser in your message is something to keep very high top of the mind. That's the main thing that they see when they're in the inbox, and the teaser that comes behind it. And once you get in there, to keep that as minimal, or to keep it as streamlined as possible, because if I can almost feel what I'm going to feel in that subject, it gets me to open the email and get to where I need to be. And then there's the testing and the optimization opportunities. Testing, we do quality checks. And so that's important. And also trying to avoid dollar signs and percents in your subjects, because what Gmail has started to do is when they see like a dollar sign or a percentage, they automatically look at it as a promotion email. And so they drop it into the promotions folder within an end user's Gmail, which usually gets them lost. And so, yeah, those are some best practices for email strategy.
All right, here we go. Analyzing campaign results. I think I need to share my screen because I was gonna go over the shoulder into ACS. So let me see there. Boom, boom. 2 seconds here. And let me know if you all can see. Are we good? All right, let me start my timer. I want to make sure that I don't take too much of y'all's time. But here we go. Analyzing campaign results. So if you send an email and you don't know what happened, that's not a good thing, right? So these are some metrics that are important. They're not the end all be all. Everything will, is in relation to what ministry you have. Some things can be outside of email, like of course conversions are not on here, but that would be important. But some of these are, open rate, and of course, in light of Apple Mail privacy protection, I would recommend you pay attention to open rate, but optimize around click-through rate. You can read that article if you want to get nitty-gritty on what that is, but basically, Apple has technology that makes email marketers work a little bit harder in a nutshell. So yeah, click-through rate, unique clicks divided by emails delivered, deliverability, just making sure your emails are actually landing in their mailbox, unsubscribes for obvious reasons. You want to make sure different things are not spiking this number. It could be the sender name that you're doing. It could be your actual content. But if you see this number spike, obviously you want to keep track of it so you would be aware of that. Top 3 links so that you'll know what your subscribers are most interested in. New subscribers and churn subscribers. And then I have some formulas there. So a good thing in the context of analyzing campaign results is exploring your email service provider. For us, we use ACS. I know there are people out there that use MailChimp and You know, it could be HubSpot. I don't know exactly what everyone is using, but I would just explore that service provider and see what they have to offer in the context of reporting. So I'm going to go through this example of showing, you know, what has been the most valuable in ACS for me. Let me know when you can see that. We good? Thumbs up. Cool, cool, cool. So yeah, so I found valuable this tab here, which is dynamic reports, because, you know, it lets you see what's actually happening with this particular email. And then, you know, I like to look at URL and click streams. Hopefully ACS will treat me right today and load quickly. There we go. So yeah, URLs and click streams, it lets you know what people are interested in. And then from this point, you can see, you know, like basically making data-driven decisions. So one thing that I noticed here was, obviously shout out Family Life for being number one. But number two here, I've seen mission trips. And what I was able to find here, or what I thought was interesting here, was it was the second most clicked link, and it was actually placed at the bottom of the email. So, you know, that's just one example of what clicking that dynamic reports can do. I'm just showing you this email here. As you see, the mission trip was at the very bottom. So what that let me know is, wow, they really, really, you know, are interested in mission trips, even though it was placed at the very bottom. So utilizing those dynamic reports, you'll be able to find out different things, and again, make better decisions going forward based on that data. And then last slide here is Google Sheets and Excel is your friend. I didn't put best friend, you know, whatever. It's your friend, best friend, whatever you want to say. But nonetheless, it's important to have a place you can go quickly to know what has been happening with your email list. And I would encourage you to do this outside of a email service provider. Now, if you can create different things within that service provider that you can go to all the time, definitely do that. But I still do think it's valuable to have something outside of that, so you know that you own that. Even if you were to change over of a service or something, you would always have your place where you can go. So yeah, aim to have a year perspective, starting out and improve as you go. Your graphs and everything don't have to look pretty as you start to gather that data. As long as you record it, you can always make it digestible later. And then the last thing I have here is a gift that I have for all of you here. Obviously, we're going to share this after, but just showing you that you can use this as a starter. You know, and yeah, I mean, just showing you some numbers. So if I just put 10 here, 20, you'll see that things start to kind of, you know, populate there. And even with the new subscribers and churn, I'm just putting numbers here, so you'll see that it'll do it for you. But as you put your numbers in here, hopefully these graphs can be beneficial for you. This is tracking active subscribers, new subscribers versus churn, and then you have open rates. And I just did the July 1st through 4th just so you can see what it'll do. But yeah, that's my gift to you, because I know, you know, doing all this stuff in Google Sheets or Excel can be difficult sometimes. So here's a good start for you. You can change these labels so it can be something that matters to your ministry. But yeah, just wanted to leave y'all with a gift. And that is all I have today. Let me go back to this so we can go to questions.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, guys. That was really great. We have a few questions. So the first one is, how do you send a personalized birthday email to an account that has 2 people on it? Many of our accounts in Siebel are for couples, and they share an email address. Does anyone have any ideas?
Faith, are you tracking both birthdays Oh, well, no, I guess it's a birthday of an individual. Do you give them a data field to opportunity to track both of those birthdays?
I think it's currently all processed through Siebel, so whatever is in the CRM. I think most of the time both names have birthdays attached, but oftentimes, especially with older couples, we'll see that they share an email address. So how do you approach? And then actually, to caveat that, a lot of the emails addressed to them say both of their names, so it's going to Bob and Irene, or Mr. and Mrs. So if I'm going to send a birthday email, how do we send an email to just one of them for their birthday?
Could you possibly? I was thinking that in that instance, could you possibly craft some sort of messaging that creatively suggests someone, you or someone in your home is celebrating a birthday? We pray God's blessing over all of you. Like, I mean,
I would
it's not.
think that you can create a birthday campaign audience where if you're pulling that data from Siebel, you can pull, and Shane, correct me if I'm wrong, if the email addresses are shared and I share my birthday and Harold shares his birthday in that Siebel form, it can send my birthday to that shared email and you can address the first name to Candace if you are collecting that data. And then when Harold comes, you can share his birthday to that same email and addressing it to Harold. But it just really depends on how Siebel is collecting that data, because you could create a custom audience for birthday campaigns. I mean, you probably wouldn't want to do all of crew names at once, but if you had a certain group that you wanted to, address their birthdays, you could definitely do that depending upon how Siebel is collecting that data. You could create a custom list.
Okay, thank you. Oh, that makes sense.
Great.
Just
All
wanted to
right.
share, a little bit of how Family Life does it by creating a household record. And then they put individual contacts below the household record, and the household record may have a shared email. And then the individual contacts may have either the same email address or they may have a separate email address. But for each of those being a unique contact within a household, they can assign birthdays and anniversary and things like that to each of those unique contacts. And so it's a little bit different than how I believe that Crew has done it, where they have Family Life has a record that's for each unique contact, and they have a record for that household. But as long as you have a field for the person and their birthday, you should be able to customize it directly to them.
Yeah. Emily, you said when sending from a person and not just a brand, does it need to be from the same person for those emails to perform better? It doesn't have to be from the same person, but what we have seen to perform better is adding like an image in that email. We also create dummy email addresses. So I don't want people to reply to Candace Call Clue's email, like my work note, because I mean, they'll possibly get lost. And I also don't want them to have my email address, but some people will create like a dummy email. They'll go through IT will create them a dummy email to go to a specific node. So like if the campus team had a school that wanted to send out emails and there's certain people who they're familiar with, and it's more than one of them, any of them can send that email, but of course you want it to be coming from candace.callclue@crew.org. You want it to be that last part of the email to be something that they will connect with.
I'll just go back up to the second question that Faith have. I don't know if there's anything else. I know Nick answered it in the string, but I don't know if there's anything else that she wanted to ask. It says, are SMS recipients able to reply to messages like they can with email? If so, do you use a specific program to track those replies?
Nick, thank you for the explanation there. I'm going to look into both of those programs for our ministry. I think that's great.
Great. Yeah. And I think, I don't know if I quite mentioned this earlier, but I think that is another benefit of SMS, is that there can be some increased kind of back and forth engagement, communication with your audience as well. And I mentioned the example of kind of the post-fall retreat, and students were texting in little blurbs about things they had learned or experienced. And so, yeah, there's some cool opportunities there for kind of personal engagement with your audience too. But yeah, it kind of depends on the platform that you're using. That, yeah, some are a little easier than others to jump in and respond to those messages.
Any other questions?
I had my own question. At what point, if you're segmenting audiences based on behavior, how long do you, I guess, wait and during like gathering that data? Are you able to say, okay, this person is interested in this ministry or interested in this product? Is it just after that one send, you just dump them in that particular segment, or is there some sort of rule of thumb of waiting to see that repeated behavior over the next X amount of days?
Okay, go ahead. Shane.
Usually they want to do a response fairly quickly after they've collected information like that. So a lot of times they want to send it the next day, or they want to send, within a couple of days, depending on what it is. So that's typically usually they want to kind of do a quick response on it. They don't want too much time to go by because people will forget what they asked for or forget that they were inquiring about something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But if you're going back into old data, if you send an email or send a newsletter and somebody has clicked into something and you want to go back to see if they've clicked into it, I wouldn't necessarily dump them into a list of saying, hey, this is, just thinking they're a blended family and they clicked on this once before and they're interested in this. You don't want to just assume to add them to like a subscription. But for a follow-up email, even if I would go back no more than 2 to 3 months to maybe give them a follow-up email. If they then click in that email, then maybe offer them the opportunity to subscribe to whatever type of ministry you're thinking through.
Good to know. All right. Emily asks, do we include emails that include video? If so, how does that affect performance?
An email we don't necessarily embed the actual video because that changes the size of the data that we're sending to the constituents and easier to get flagged. But what we do is take a screen grab of video, add a play button to it so that it gives them the faux feeling of pressing play to watch this video. And then that link will go to a hosted site. Like if Chancel wanted to send out this video in an email, she could take a screen grab, have a play button on it, they hit play, and it'll play in our YouTube channel, and then they will watch it there. And so we have used that strategy with Family Life before in their newsletter that they send bi-weekly, and they want to increase the traffic to their YouTube channel. And so they will offer and store a lot of their video content on their YouTube channel, and in their newsletter, you can go click on that and people can watch that video. It also gives them the opportunity to subscribe to be able to receive more of Family Life videos.
Great. Any other questions?
Oh, I was just going to add on to that. It's not exactly video, but it is moving. You can do animated GIFs. And again, you want to be cognizant of the size of the file that you're sending to everybody. But usually kind of as a rule of thumb, if it's 500K or less, that's a good size to send out. And then you can do an animated GIF. And there's various places on the internet where you can create your animated GIF. And then if it turns out that it's too big, you can pull out screens of it and make it smaller to optimize the size, so you can send it out to people. But a lot of times people like to send an animated GIF so it has a little bit of movement and everything like that, not too huge of a file.
And they look amazing.
Nick, are you the one who we can reach out to for help if we want to explore using SMS?
I think the place to start would be with our, I should know the link to it, or with our email to submit a request through the marketing queue. And so, yeah, I might be available to help jump in and give some feedback, or we'll kind of distribute projects that way. Do you add anything to that, Chancel? Or do you have that email?
I'm
Oh, there
posting.
we go.
Yeah, perfect. US
Great.
Digital at Go. Anything else? All right. Well, yeah, just a reminder, if anyone would like to schedule a consultation to explore more opportunities with SMS, that more, personalization take there, or just personalization within some of your email builds, by all means, feel free to reach out to us to schedule a consultation. Like I said, this recording will be upload it to our YouTube channel, and then we'll also send out, or maybe just like attach the deck on Workplace, since there's many of us that are not necessarily an initial invite. So yeah, we'll upload it there. But we appreciate everyone for joining us for lunch and joining us to learn a little bit more about email. Next week, we'll continue our series. We'll be speaking on web, so learning how to, create those great landing pages that allows your users to convert, and increases those conversions on those landing pages. So that will be next week. Then the following week, we'll be talking about ads, and both paid and our search and social ads, and how you can boost your campaigns through that channel. And then the last Friday of the month, we'll talk through social. So we hope to see you guys in our later series. All right. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Oh, Alex did ask about where our YouTube channel was. He didn't know we had one.
I will add that on to Workplace. Yeah, we have a YouTube channel. I'll add that.